welcome to the Architect's Corner. Today we have a special guest, John R. Mastera, luxury residential architect in New Canaan, Connecticut. He was voted one of the top 100 luxury residential architects in North America by Bond. And today he'll discuss trends, tips, and technology in a post-pandemic world. You won't want to miss this, especially since we're all working from home. So welcome. I'm going to dub this the Architect's Corner. We'll do episode 1 with the Architect's Corner. I know we spoke last week, John, about trends in the industry and how the pandemic has affected your industry, and we wanted to sort of hear from you as an architect that's been an architect for 20 plus years. Now, what do you see? How has, the pandemic affected how you see how people build homes? What are people asking for? We talked about how many people are now working from home. And so that presents a challenge and an opportunity for you in terms of your thought process. And so, we briefly talked about, the 3 or 4 different points or things that are in a house now. You got the work, you got the play, you have the eat, the live, and even perhaps sort of the outside. And love to hear your thoughts about how what those points are in a little bit more detail, and then how are you adapting in your thought process now that you are having to think about the added layers of what people want in their homes. So
right. Well, as far as design and architecture, in a way, and this is kind of a strange way, the pandemic has helped architects design better homes, I think, in that it's made people aware of all the facility and beauty and spirituality that can occur within a piece of architecture, particularly one you live in. And now the focus has been, okay, I'm at home. I need to work here. I need to live here, and I need to play here. How do I integrate those 3 things? And there's nobody better to do that than an architect, actually. So it means that our practice has changed a bit in that people are sort of listening to us a little more now on how to bring the outdoors in and the indoors out within their house. Make sure that while the kids are playing video games and running around the house or whatever, that number one, they have room to do that. They have spaces to do that, but mom and or dad can work and have a Zoom call, can have some privacy to focus and get work done, and essentially not be impaired by the fact that they want it all. They want to be a parent. They want to have a full life and yet work as well. And I think there's been this great realization that you can, in fact, integrate all those things. You can do it. And with better architecture, it's actually even better and easier. And so the idea is, from a client's perspective, how do I get there? They're asking me, John, okay, so I'm going to work half the time here at home, and here's how we live. The kids, they do these sports, they have school at this time, but they also need to have school at home at times, or study. How do we integrate all that into a lifestyle that allows us not to want to kill each other, in a tiny little space? We're all cramped together. So one good way to think about that might be back in the day when the Pilgrims came over to America, and anybody else who was an explorer at those times, they typically wanted to build architecture that was centered around the fireplace. and that was it. It was the kitchen, it was the, you know, the living room, the family room, or whatever. And it's a great analogy too, because they had to do everything at home. They farmed. It was an agrarian society. They had to raise their crops, but also their animals, and everything was right there. We've kind of reverted back to that. So even if you were or are a CEO in New York City, you're kind of farming at home now. You're at home doing your work, and but the lay of the land's a little different. Back in the day, you hunkered around the fireplace because you needed to stay warm, and you wanted to keep a temperate interior environment for all these activities. Nowadays, we can spread it out a bit because we have wonderful smart house systems, but even before that, great HVAC system, so heating, ventilating, and air conditioning. We can essentially pump, you know, or move warmth or cool air pretty much anywhere in the house. We also have great insulation these days that create great value. So we're not being wasteful if we spread the house out, and spreading the house out allows us to add some exterior courtyards or exterior spaces in between the interior spaces. And I see that's what we're doing now. We're taking that pilgrim environment, you might say, spreading it out. Then there's still the center hearth, the fireplace, where you still want to get everybody together. But then then you split, you do your thing somewhere else in the architecture or on the property, and those can be extremely uplifting, creative spaces when designed properly by an architect, to be honest. The glass house is a great example of maybe, you know, one space. The glass house by Philip Johnson is essentially one big space. And it was easy for Philip because he essentially lived alone or with one other person, and they were pretty quiet individuals. If you think of that as like one module of a bigger building, then you can kind of see, oh my gosh, you know, can you imagine working in that space and then it starts snowing, so you feel like you're in a snow globe, you know, and somebody has shaken it up, and out looking over the rear fields that he had there and all that, or on the front, you're looking at the round pool. You know, for projects that I'm designing, I'm thinking that way. I'm thinking, okay, how do I get you into a particular state of mind, whether it's the living part of it, the pleasure part of it, or the working part of it, and set the tone, but also give you these other experiences around you with the architecture and the nature that we can give you peeks of, or we can make it all glass or whatever, in order to meet the client's needs for whatever they do. So it's a lot of fun. It's you know, for me, it's a wonderful opportunity to take my pencil and do some creative stuff for clients.
Mm-hmm. John, is it more challenging? You say it's a lot of fun. Now you have maybe 3 or 4, I guess, tones in the house that you have to think about dealing with clients. Yeah, you have extra layers, so to speak. Things get more complicated, I assume. Is it more challenging? You mentioned it's fun. Can it be more challenging? And how do you approach these different settings of tones in each of the components that you talked about?
Yeah, so it is. It's challenging. It's always challenging to do something new with all the traditional products, right? Traditional things. People tend to throw them together the same way all the time. And, you know, somebody looks at you and says, okay, John, be creative. And the way I approach that is the challenge isn't so much creating a space that sets the tone. We're trained to do that. So I might have 3 spaces and 3 tones. Now the trick is, okay, how do we transition from one to the other? And it's the transitions that are the opportunity to be really exciting and really key in the architecture. So it's a hallway, or it's maybe it's a walk that's outside from one small building to another, but creating that transition that also takes and changes your mental attitude as you're going from one place to another.
John, could you talk a little bit and maybe give an example of the outside in and the inside out that you've come across, or that you've been asked to do, or that you've seen? You mentioned in the beginning.
Yeah, so I have a client right now who's asking for a water feature that she wants to be able to see the water feature from the interior. She wants it outside, and we have a particular place for it, but also hear it. So hear that that wall between the inside space and the outside space needs to be transparent. It needs to be open at times, and therefore bringing the inside out and the outside in. The easiest example of it is if you have a wall around your family room, but it's a wall that folds into it's a set of glass doors, and you can pull them all away and they disappear into the wall, and now your living room just goes out to your deck, and it's really one big space. That's an extreme example of outdoor becoming indoor and indoor becoming outdoor, but it doesn't have to be that blatant. You can do it with solid walls and windows and doors as well. So that's just a visual indoor and outdoor connection.
Wonderful. John, a lot of people are working from home these days. What, if you could give us an idea of projects that you've come across that you can let us know about in terms of how you've converted certain spaces in a house, maybe how to build out certain spaces. If you could give us an example, a few examples of maybe what's the easiest, what's more challenging, so that people have an idea of how they can now convert certain areas of their houses into workspaces.
Yeah, so taking a space, particularly on either the south side or the north side of the house, and changing the lighting, the natural lighting. I wouldn't say that's necessary. Well, that's probably the easiest way. If you're talking about an existing building, putting in, for instance, I have a client in Greenwich who they both work from home, but my goal in creating their offices was that they didn't have low windows where you could necessarily look out. There were actually things we wanted to block the view of, so we gave them high windows. They're up high. They look out and up into the trees. They have all these beautiful tall trees around them, and then long overhangs on the roof. So that in the summertime, the direct sunlight doesn't affect their computer screen and they're working, but still lets in a wonderful diffused light, particularly on the north side. That works. Painters always like to work in a room that faces north and has north windows because the light is just so perfect. It's so diffused. On the south side, in this particular example, my client, the wife has the south office, and the trees, particularly in the summertime, once they leaf out, they start creating that diffused light because they block the direct sunlight, and that gives them just a lot of natural circadian rhythm light to work with. So the idea is that they know when it's morning, they know when it's night. They're not in this cocoon and, it's totally dark and it's 3 in the afternoon, but they feel like it's 2 in the morning or anything like that. It's completely natural, and you have this natural rhythm to it, which helps immensely in the energy that they might have as they're working, and the typical cycle of a workday. So it feels very natural to them. They've given me wonderful feedback. They absolutely love it. They didn't even know this was possible. So they're very, very happy and very productive in work.
So that's a great point, John, and it makes me think about how during these times, things that are completely natural, things that aid in mental health is always better. Employers want their employees to work better, to perform better, and to the tune that you can create that natural environment and actually make them productive. And because you've created that, how important is that? And maybe you can talk a little bit more about, you know, the well-being piece that you think about, that you literally think about when you're designing spaces, because I think that's very, very important for us to hear.
Yeah, I think mental health is affected significantly by architecture. I mean, if you're in a prison cell that's 3 feet by 3 feet, obviously that's a lot different than being at a resort that's spread out and you can go wherever you want, right? So as I'm designing, I'm thinking about that a lot. And so things such as either the apparent space that you might have in a room. So let's just say you're in a 3 foot by 3 foot room, but the walls are glass and you look 100 yards in each direction at beautiful mountains or trees or a pond or something. That's one way to solve the problem of a small room and give you the mental space that you need. And vice versa. Sometimes you do want to kind of cocoon. And a good example of that is an ingle nook in around fireplaces. Ingle nooks back in the day were small spaces that were warm and cozy, and you sat and had your brandy and had a chat with somebody in your ingle nook, or you sat and read a book. So creating, I think it's really important to have a variety of spaces like that. I call it a hierarchy of spaces. So a great example of that is that Frank Lloyd Wright used to always bring you into his homes and then compress you. So the ceiling was very low. He was a short guy anyway. So the ceiling was very low. It was a relatively small room, the entry. And then boom, he hit you with this big open space in the living room, which was the center. Typically the fireplace was there. That was the center of the house anyway. And then there were medium-sized rooms and other small spaces as well for more intimate type living or whatever, working. And so I think about that all the time, and those experiences throughout the day of being compressed and then expanding again mentally just really raise your spirits. I mean, they keep somebody mentally aware and spiritually, you know, I think very happy. You can go, you know, doing cartwheels down a long hallway. That's fantastic. You know, have a nice cup of coffee at the Ingle Nook and then go to the grand ballroom like family room and really enjoy the expanse of that.
Keeps things exciting. John, now that we've talked about work, maybe we can transition and talk about play. How do you see play being a function now that we're all at home? What have you seen? What kind of trends have you seen in terms of sort of the play piece of things?
Yeah, so I think that one thing people worry about is becoming blobs sitting on the couch staring at the TV all day, doing video games or TV or whatever. We look at our screens a lot, and there's still definitely a place for play and entertainment, you know, with a home theater and TVs and all that. But I noticed that a lot of people are also thinking of, okay, let's have a game room and a puzzle room, and you know, places where you can turn everything off and actually use your mind. And that integrates also, or we try to integrate that into outdoor space as well, so that people get outside and run around and just get goofy in the yard or whatever, and play games out there. And I think that not only is that, great physical activity, but it's great mental activity. Particularly, I love watching kids when they all get together. They don't know each other. You have a bunch of families maybe over, and the kids don't know each other, but in 30 seconds, somebody will say, "Hey, how about a game of tag?" And all the other kids go, "Yeah," or somebody will immediately say, "No, let's race each other," and then suddenly they all start doing one game or another, and then it leads to another game and another game. And I think we need to be like that as adults as well, and just get out there and get creative in our play structure, in that it's very loose, but we come up with a game to play, which suddenly adds some structure, and get out there, enjoy it, as well as game rooms and other things other than TV. The TV part is easy. Mm-hmm. Particularly architecturally, you find a room that's about the right size, you put a TV in it, and 6 or 7 speakers, and you have surround sound, and it's great. I mean, it's our technology is so good that you can very quickly put together a very sophisticated home theater type room. It's really exciting designing those and integrating those with the kitchen as well, and the family room and stuff. So, and that's important, but you don't want to sit in front of the TV all the time. So people are asking for these other spaces as well for play.
Mm-hmm. John, maybe we can transition and talk about maybe a trend that has happened where a lot of people, especially from the urban areas in New York, are moving out to the suburbs. There's more space, there's more land. Maybe you can talk about a little bit, how do you see certain trends happening? Are homes getting bigger? Are homes getting smaller? Are people wanting just more land? Could you talk a little bit about what you're seeing out there in the marketplace?
Yeah, I think in the marketplace that there is the great migration out from the city into the burbs, has created this market for smaller properties, not necessarily smaller homes, but smaller properties, bigger homes on smaller properties. But the spaces nowadays, the space in a home needs to have a purpose. It's not, I want a 10,000 square foot house and I'm only going to use 5,000 square feet of it. It's the idea is more of, no, I need 5,200 square feet, so I only want a 5,200 square foot house. And I also notice people coming out from urban areas, they have to get used to this bigger space as well, because they're used to really being crunched, in the city. So it takes them a little time to recognize that, oh yeah, maybe I do want a separate game room and and all of this, and to start expanding their life a little more into that kind of space.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And any last thoughts? I know that you mentioned about Frank Lloyd Wright's sort of compression and then expansion, sort of playing with the mind. Are there any other trends in terms of open spaces? A lot of commercial buildings now are using the sort of open model floor plan because they want to have their employees congregate and have a more of an informal perspective. What do you see happening in the residential space with regards to that?
Yeah, in residential architecture, we've kind of expanded or separated the walls from the living room and the family room and the kitchen, and really started combining it as one big space. That movement actually began way back in the 30s, probably, with the international style. What I see happening right now, I mean, I see the opportunity right now for really a new style evolving, although I think it's going to be a lot like the machine style or international style, like Corbusier used to promote in his contemporaries, Mies van der Rohe, Corbusier, even Philip Johnson, who kind of went with whatever. But there's a big opportunity now with all the technology we have to actually make that work much better than it worked before. So they designed some fantastic spaces, but they were really hard and expensive to heat because they didn't have the wall technology and roof technology to hold in the BTUs. And now we have that technology. So now we can expand on their ideas. And so on their shoulders, I think we can design some pretty fantastic works, and I'm excited to see what over the next 10 years, what we as architects as a whole come up with for residential architecture.
Wonderful. And lastly, you touched upon technology. Perhaps you could tell us what are maybe the top trends in technology. I know smart homes are very popular. I think being able to have voice smart devices. What type of top technologies do you sort of see happening right now?
I think smart homes are becoming very popular. Also, the way I look at it is that we have technology now that really makes our lives easier and makes our devices, I'm calling our home a device right now, respond to us. So biometrically, it'll know that Olivier lives here, and when he walks up to the door, he opens it, or it just opens and he goes in. You don't need to grab a key and unlock it, but it's locked otherwise. If I walked up to your house, I wouldn't be able to get in, but definitely the house would tell you that I'm here or somebody's here. He looks like this, and give you a picture of me. That technology's, basically there right now. We have these video doorbells and all. Mm-hmm. I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. If those are, and they can be integrated with locking systems and all that already. But I think it'll become ubiquitous and inexpensive, and just a standard that's it'll be a little George Jetson-ish how we're living, and it'll be really hard for us to give up our keys, but we won't need them anymore. Things like that, and that then ties into temperature control and air control, air quality, all within the house or residences. So the building really becomes a living, breathing thing. Like, really, it'll actually have a mind, a chip behind it that is controlling all these things for us, and our particular likes and dislikes, so completely customized for us. That's what I see happening with technology.
That's great. Well, John, want to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
This has been a wonderful opportunity to understand the trends, what the pandemic has given us, what you're doing, how you're thinking, your philosophy, and what you see as far as the future. So,
yeah, well, thank you. Thanks for the questions. They were great.
Wonderful. Great. Good stuff.
Yeah, I love it.